This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Whether you need a domain, a website, or an online store, make it with Squarespace. Check out squarespace.com for a free trial, link below. Think of a haunted house, one that could have come straight out of a novel by Shirley Jackson, the author of The Haunting of Hill House. Now combine it with a labyrinth of forking corridors and staircases, a place that may have been written by Jorge Luis Borges, the Argentinian master of magical realism. What you've just imagined should look an awful lot like today's destination, the Winchester Mystery House. In today's Geographics, we're going to explore how this mansion became one of California's top tourist attractions and, at the same time, one of America's most mysterious and unsettling locations. The Winchester Mystery House is located at 525 South Winchester Boulevard, San Jose, California, about an hour's drive south of San Francisco. The house has been open to visitors since June 30th, 1923, and has attracted more than 12 million guests. Nowadays, it can be booked for weddings, corporate meetings, and team-building events, but its reputation is more than a simple museum or architectural wonder. If the Winchester Mystery House were a fictional creation, it would be a very clever way for a writer to combine the lore surrounding a typical haunted house with that of a labyrinth. Both are powerful metaphors for the winding corridors of the human mind, as well as whatever shadows may lurk within them. The Winchester House is, in a way, a solid metaphor, but built in the real world out of wood, brick, and tile. But let's proceed in order. What does the house look like? What ghostly manifestations haunt its halls? Who built it? And why? And finally, what secrets may be hidden within its architecture? I'll start by giving you a quick tour of the house. Take your notepads out because there are plenty of numbers ahead, by the way. The Winchester Mansion covers a total surface area of 24,000 square feet. That's 2,230 square meters. By comparison, the surface of the White House is around 14,000 square feet. The building contains 160 rooms interconnected by 2,000 doors and ventilated by a staggering 10,000 windows and 52 skylights. Those of you who love prime numbers will be happy to hear about the 47 stairways and 47 fireplaces connected to a mere 17 chimneys. Finally, there is an appropriate number of bathrooms for such a sprawling, spooky mansion, 13 of them, a number which we'll hear a bit more about later on. Even without going into more detail, it's easy to understand how visitors would find it easy to lose their way in this giant maze of a mansion. And like any labyrinth worthy of its name, you need a corresponding Daedalus, the mythical architect of the Cretan labyrinth, home to the Minotaur. Our Daedalus was Sarah Winchester, the widow of William Wirt Winchester of Winchester Rifles fame. According to law, from 1886 until her death in 1922, Sarah never stopped construction work on her house. She had 16 carpenters and countless other builders permanently on site, adding or removing rooms, apparently without any preordained plan. The result was a house built in the Queen Anne style, at least superficially. In reality, the mansion transcends any definition, is an architectural marvel, a total engineering oddity. It seems to have sprouted new rooms, wings, extensions, and roofs as if it were a living organism experiencing uncontrolled proliferation. What Sarah lacked in self-restraint, she more than compensated with a near-endless amount of funding. She poured $5 million into the ongoing construction, which is about $71 million in today's money. The main building material was redwood, although Sarah was displeased with the whole wooden look and asked for a faux grain and stain to be applied. If you step inside, there is a good chance it may take hours before you find an exit. There are miles of twisting corridors and winding staircases, sometimes leading to nothing but dead ends. It may feel like walking inside what looks like an Escher illustration. And in this home, there are plenty of interior design oddities. Take the doors, for example. When you open some of them, don't walk through too fast or you'll smash your face against the solid wall behind them. Some small doors lead into larger rooms, while large doors will take you into smaller rooms. One particular door on the second floor seems designed for Wile E. Coyote, as it opens directly to a 2-story drop going straight down into the garden. In some parts of the house, there are skylights which are either covered by another skylight or a roof. Our favourite one has to be the one which was built directly into the floor. Some of the more confounding rooms have windows and balconies located inside rather than facing outside. Other rooms were created to look like boxes inside of other boxes, like Russian nesting dolls. And most of the halls feature the typical upside-down pillars which are located all around the home. Another recurring element is the number 13. Just to give you some examples, the Winchester house has many 13-paned windows and 13-paneled ceilings, as well as a 13-step stairway. One of the bathrooms contains 13 windows. That is great for natural lighting, but not so great when your towel is just a little bit too far away from the shower. Now, speaking of showers, indeed a shower was one of the many technical innovations that Sarah had installed at her place. Well, innovation for that time at least. Sarah was not just bent on making the weirdest house ever, she wanted it to work properly. The Winchester mansion can boast wool insulation, gas lights controlled by switches, electricity in some of the rooms, modern plumbing, and an efficient sewage system. For all the technological advances, the Winchester house could never shake off its reputation of being a generally creepy place or just downright haunted. But is this reputation rightfully earned? After Sarah Winchester's death, the entire estate was inherited by her niece, who ended up auctioning it off. As it turned out, the sheer absurdity of its layout made it fairly worthless to the average buyer. Some clever soul bought the mansion for a mere $150,000 and opened it for public display in 1923. Rumors about the eccentric Sarah and her building projects already abounded while she was alive, which we'll return to in a bit, but it was after the public opening that the rumors exploded. New secret attics and rooms sometimes turned up out of nowhere. Even a hidden treasure was said to be buried inside of the house. And of course, there came the stories about apparitions, disembodied voices, cold spots, and visitors being touched by unseen hands. Were these genuine reports of paranormal activity, or maybe just cases of self-suggestion fueled by the bewildering layout? The unorthodox structure could easily generate a sense of unease, displacement, or confusion, like the sort of thing you experience in a nightmare. Or maybe it was just a case of clever marketing for the new tourist attraction. The house has been tested for paranormal activity on 2 occasions. The first time came courtesy of the master escape artist and stage illusionist Harry Houdini. Houdini had a personal interest in debunking false paranormal activity and exposing bogus mediums and spiritualists who he saw as con artists. Nonetheless, Houdini was a believer in the spiritual world, which may have drawn him to the Winchester house in the hope of finding proof of the real thing. His investigation, though, was inconclusive. A more in-depth scientific approach was taken by parapsychologist Christopher Chacon in the 1990s. His extensive paranormal investigation lasted a whole month, but failed to find any evidence of ghosts. What we've seen since are recent reports from eyewitnesses, both employees and visitors to the site. Many of them have claimed to have had ghostly encounters within the building. The spirit most frequently seen roaming the grounds is that of a friendly man carrying a wheelbarrow. A tour guide famously posted on Reddit of being scared of working there due to a door slamming shut mysteriously when least expected. Oh, the horror. I mean, how could a higher being possibly allow for such an abomination to freely infect the very fabric of the physical realm? A door slamming shut. Terrifying. If the connection between the house and the supernatural is limited to this handful of occurrences, then you really must tip your hat to the PR and marketing departments of the Winchester tourist site. They haven't quite created a whole mythology from scratch, but they have built upon and exploited the lure surrounding the matriarch who founded the mansion, a story whose ingredients are family tragedies, a pervasive sense of guilt, and a fortune built on the trade of killing. The most famous element is one that inspired the recent film Winchester, starring Helen Mirren. According to this version, Sarah Winchester built the mansion to shelter and appease the ghosts of those killed by her husband's weapons. A sort of Hades on our very earth. But how much of this is true, and where did the legend originate from? And with that, it's time to look at the lives of Sarah and William Winchester. But before we do that, I'd like to take a moment to tell you about the sponsor of today's episode, and that's Squarespace. Squarespace allows you to create a powerful online identity. Maybe you run a Winchester Mystery House-like attraction, and you need a website to tell people about it, and those scary ghosts. Well, Squarespace is the perfect place to set that up. Or maybe you don't do that. Maybe you run some sort of normal business. Or maybe you just need a website for your personal needs. Well, Squarespace, also great for that too. It all starts on Squarespace with a beautiful template. But if you hate beautiful templates, not judging, well, you can start from scratch. Maybe, unlike me, you have design skills. Or, if you don't want to do either of those things, move over from an existing domain to Squarespace and just make it easier on yourself. But look, just go with a template. It's a great way to get started. Then you can customize it. That's super easy. And after that, unlike with other website places, there's no updates, there's no patches, there's no tech stuff that you have to deal with. No one likes any of that stuff. But you know what everyone does like? Squarespace's 24/7 customer support, who are there to help you whenever you've got a question. And Squarespace isn't just about an online presence. You can totally sell stuff or services on a Squarespace site. So look, if you're looking to start a business, pursue a dream, do it with Squarespace. Head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/geographics to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. And let's get back to it. It is not possible to tell the story of the Winchester House without introducing the extraordinary personality who built it, Sarah Winchester, née Pardee. Sarah Lockwood Pardee's date of birth is still unclear, but we will go with September of 1839. She was born in New Haven, Connecticut, to Sarah Burns and Leonard Pardee. Her father was a successful carpenter with progressive views, holding court with prominent abolitionists and free thinkers of the day. This environment may have prompted Sarah to expand her knowledge in all directions. She was an excellent student, a polyglot, and a musical composer who continuously showed an adept understanding of maths and the sciences. According to author Richard Allan Wagner, Sarah was raised and educated in an environment ripe with Freemasonic and Rosicrucian philosophy. Several of Sarah's uncles and cousins were Freemasons, as were two of her professors at the Young Ladies' Collegiate Institute. One of her friends, Delia Bacon, was the first to publish the theory that 16th and 17th century philosopher, author, and statesman Francis Bacon was the real author behind Shakespeare's works. According to Wagner, all these elements contributed to Sarah's vast knowledge and interest in the rituals and symbols of the occult, specifically Freemasonry, Rosicrucianism, and Theosophism. Keep that in mind. This 19th century American Athena, goddess of wisdom, also developed a reputation as one of the area's great young beauties, eventually becoming known as the Belle of New Haven. According to legend, Athena resisted the aggressive courtship of Hephaestus, the blacksmith of the gods. But on September 30th, 1862, Bar Athena did marry her own American, Hephaestus. This was William Wirt Winchester, a childhood friend and eventual heir to the Winchester Repeating Arms Company. At the time of their wedding, the Winchesters were not yet in the firearms business. William's father, Oliver, was a co-owner of the Winchester Davies shirt manufactory. It was only later that Oliver developed an interest in the firearms business, and after taking control of the Volcanic Arms Company, he established his own Winchester Repeating Arms Company in 1866. It was a well-timed business move. The nation was on the road to recovery after the Civil War, but was also expanding westward to fulfill its manifest destiny. Guns became more in demand than shirts. William soon sold his stocks in the clothing company and jumped on board, becoming board secretary of the Winchester Repeating Arms Company. The same year in which the company had been founded was a tragic one for the couple. On the 15th of June, Sarah had given birth to a baby girl, Annie. Unfortunately, Annie had a rare congenital disease that prevented her body from absorbing and processing proteins. Only 6 weeks after her birth, Annie died of malnutrition. Annie's death took a huge toll on the mental well-being of both Winchesters, who never had any more children. The private tragedies were flanked by public triumphs, though the Winchester family business became immensely successful thanks to its best-selling product, the Winchester Model 1873 rifle. The 1873 was the most popular lever-action rifle that Winchester ever produced. This model was produced from 1873 to 1919, selling over 720,000 units. It's no wonder then that it became known as the gun that won the West. Celebrities like Buffalo Bill Cody, Annie Oakley, and even Theodore Roosevelt appreciated the ease of use use, ease of maintenance, accuracy, and high rate of fire. It's worth noting, though, that the US Army was never equipped with Winchester weapons. During the conflict with Native American nations, the Union soldiers carried Spencer and Springfield rifles and carbines. The Winchester was considered too expensive for mass purchase and too complicated for the average infantryman. So why are we mentioning so many details? Well, that's to largely point out the Winchester rifles were used entirely by private owners. Cowboys, settlers, gold prospectors, and maybe some outlaws and sheriffs. And we can be certain that they killed many people, but we can't calculate exactly how many victims fell to these guns. In March 1881, William Winchester died aged 43 following a long battle with the scourge of the 19th century, tuberculosis. Sarah inherited a 50% stake in the company worth approximately $20 million. That's more than $500 million in today's money. Sarah gave a generous donation to what would become the Winchester Chest Clinic at New Haven Yale Hospital before deciding to move to the West Coast to start anew with extended family members. But according to historian Ralph Rambo, Sarah did not go west immediately. She first embarked on a 3-year world tour from 1881 to 1884. So what did Sarah do during those years? Rambo and Wagner have proposed some theories, all founded on the idea that our Athena had a profound interest in secret societies and esoteric knowledge. Theory number 1 posits that Sarah may have joined a French lodge of the Co-Freemasonry, a branch of the secret society which allowed female membership. Another possible scenario involves Sarah visiting esoteric architectural landmarks such as the French Cathedral of Chartres or Rosslyn Chapel in Scotland. Both churches have interesting architectural features, such as an 11th Circuit labyrinth in Chartres or a staircase leading nowhere in Rosslyn, and perhaps that might be reminding you of something. In 1884, Sarah took up residence in the San Francisco Bay Area, eventually moving inland to the Santa Clara Valley, now San Jose, to buy an 8-room farmhouse from one Dr. Robert Caldwell. The farmhouse was the first stub of what would eventually become the Winchester House. Local newspapers were puzzled by this secretive lady who would only speak to her building staff and her close relatives. It was about this time that the most notorious narrative about Sarah and her project started to circulate. The story goes that after William's death, Sarah had consulted renowned medium Adam Coons, who had advised her to move west, settle, and build a house to shelter the ghosts of the thousands of victims caused by William's Winchester 73. The story was embellished by other details. Over time, Sarah supposedly developed the notion that the construction of a labyrinthian mansion would cause the spirits to wander aimlessly and would thus never find her in the house to exact their revenge. She allegedly took to the habit of running daily seances to consult the spirits on what to build the next day and would redesign her plans accordingly. Another addition to Sarah Winchester's mythology is that she became convinced that she would continue to remain alive as long as she kept on developing her house. And all of this reminds us of another classical myth. According to Homer's Odyssey, Penelope was the queen of Ithaca, wife of King Odysseus. As it famously took him 10 years to return home after the Trojan War, Penelope had to stave off the unwanted attention of dozens of suitors, the Protsi. She promised, "I will marry one of you when I will finish weaving a shroud." But every night she would undo the fabric, endlessly procrastinating her work until the return of her husband. Sarah, too, may have been constantly doing and undoing, building only to tear down and rebuild, thus keeping at bay an unwanted consequence. Not her forced remarrying, but instead her demise. The American Penelope, though, may have had other motives besides keeping spirits at bay or extending her time on Earth. It's time to pick up some clues from her early life. Sarah's interest in Freemasonry, her possible knowledge of esoteric European locations, proximity to circles involved with Francis Bacon, these are all elements that author Richard Allan Wagner has compiled into another, quite peculiar theory. The Winchester Mystery House is not haunted, nor was it built by a widow made insane by grief or obsessed by ghosts. It's not an architectural oddity developed at random. Sarah purposefully filled the house with hermetic symbols, lifted from Francis Bacon's work, Freemasonry, Rosicrucianism, and Theosophy. I already mentioned the repeated use of the number 13. According to Wagner, this is the most important of the Kabbalistic numbers studied by Francis Bacon. But there's more. For example, as you cross the wrought iron gates to enter the property, you may notice that they are adorned with 8-petaled daisies emanating 16 radiance. These are an adaptation of a Masonic insignia, a sun symbol, which was also used by Francis Bacon in his engravings. These emblems at the entry gates may signify the beginning of an initiation process. Moving inside the house, Wagner points out the significance of the spacious ballroom. This is entirely built without nails, a feature that mimics the Temple of Salomon, a building of great significance to Freemasonry. The ballroom draws light from 2 stained glass windows decorated with 2 Shakespeare citations. Wide unclasp the tables of their thoughts. This is from Troilus and Cressida, and these same thoughts people this little world, from Richard II. According to Wagner, this is a double homage to Francis Bacon. These quotes can be interpreted as allusions to Bacon's beliefs on Masonic initiation and reincarnation. Plus, let's not forget, Sarah, influenced by her friend Delia, may have been convinced that Bacon was Shakespeare. Another room scrutinized by Wagner is the so-called Séance room, located in the exact center of the building. The author dismisses the rumor that this room was used to communicate with spirits. Rather, it was a sanctum. In other words, it served as a quiet and secluded space used by Rosicrucians to study and meditate. I could go on forever, and in fact, Richard Allan Wagner does go on forever, framing every single feature of the house as a hidden cipher. You will find links to his articles in the description below. I will not try to discern whether any of this may be true or not. What matters to us is that a complex character like Sarah Winchester, as well as her complex architectural creation, will always be open to a myriad of speculations. There is another explanation I haven't covered yet that could shed some light on how this real-life metaphor came into being. In 2010, history teacher Mary Jo Ignoffo published a biography about Sarah Winchester, using her own private letters as a source. The book is titled Captive of the Labyrinth, Sarah L. Winchester, Heiress to the Rifle Fortune. In this book, Ignoffo disproves many elements always accepted as truth. For example, Sarah did not keep the construction work going for 365 days a year. She would interrupt it for months at a time on more than one occasion. The author uncovered letters suggesting Sarah kept building as an excuse to discourage relatives from visiting. On top of that, Sarah may have prolonged the construction of the house as a means to create employment for local builders and craftsmen. Sarah's father was a carpenter himself who had gone through some rough patches when his daughter was very young. And how about the architectural oddities, such as the walled doors or stairs leading to nowhere? These actually may have been the result of some patches applied after the San Francisco earthquake of 1906, which toppled the top 2 floors. Sarah was in the house at the moment of the disaster, a frightful experience for her. This may explain why Sarah actually spent her remaining years on Earth in a different estate in Atherton, some 25 miles northwest of San Jose. So much for the mysterious widow who lived and died secluded in a haunted house. And maybe that's all there is to the story of Sarah Winchester and her mystery house. An intelligent, talented, resourceful woman whose spirit was wounded but not destroyed by the death of her husband and infant daughter. A woman who later decided to sink her vast ocean of resources into an unending building project that would have kept her focus occupied, her relatives at bay, and her local tradesmen employed. It was a project in which she could both experiment with the esoteric symbols she had studied in her youth, as well as with the most revolutionary technologies of the future. But when the theories start piling up and all sound equally worthy of a good tale, then it's probably time to just stop mythologizing. We may never know the truth about the Winchester Mystery House. We probably don't even need to. What we need, as an intelligent and imaginative species, are symbols, legends, and myths. In the words of Dickinson, one need not be a chamber to be haunted. Our own minds may prowl the houses on the hill, waiting to be haunted by the ghost of a story to inject meaning to our world and focus to our beliefs. Places we have covered or will cover in this channel. Places like the Winchester House, Area 51, or the Cecil Hotel. In a way, they are all real-life symbols on a map. And regardless of the facts and history behind them, they all have generated their own lore. They may have no definitive truth to offer, but they have surely contributed to the drafting of new legends for a new world, an American mythology. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below. Also, please do support this channel by supporting our fantastic sponsor, Squarespace. There's a link to them below. And thank you for watching.